And we're live.
Hello, and welcome to the Modern Romantic Podcast, where we celebrate and inspire romanticism through passionate people doing incredible things. Hi, I'm cooking up something good in the kitchen. I'm Trey, and I'm joined by my co host, Emily. Hi, Emily.
Hi. I was going to say, what's cooking good looking? Because, no one's ever heard that enough.
And I don't hear it often enough, even with a loving boyfriend upstairs. I'm kidding. I love you, Seth. Thank you for telling me I'm pretty. Uh,
We are
yeah,
hopeless.
we're, we're terrible. We got great puns, and we also have a fantastic guest.
Yeah,
Emily, would you introduce our phenomenal guest today?
I would. I will. I shall. Today we have Minnesota's most outrageous poet, Danny Klecko, in the house. Welcome to the show, Danny.
Yay!
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
You do way more than just poetry, but I'll let us, get into that as it unfolds. But you always been a poet forever and ever?
No, nobody was ever always a poet. I mean, you have to like become depressed and depraved for a little while before you can slide into poetry. I started off a happy person, but when life got difficult and I went up against it, and I became world weary and put words together. I started off as a kid, writing. I've always liked words, and I wrote songs for all the cool bands and things like that. And then I just started doing like zines and did a lot of business items. But it's interesting. I've spent most of my life working odd shifts. Currently, I work like an 11 a.m. to a 7 p.m. Never working normal shifts. So when you do that, you're alienated, and when you're alienated, you're in front of an oven of bread. You end up writing things down. That's kind of how the dream started.
So you were maybe baking things first.
I've done everything I do. When I was in first grade, Mrs. McDermott taught us in art class, take all the things you love and put them on one canvas. So me, I would always like write while I was baking, and all the things, cooking recipes, stuff like that. Everything I've done, I've created in front of an oven.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, have you ever found a way to combine the two things together? Like, do you describe your cooking with your writing? Or do you, like, are you inspired by reading something and then you go make it?
I've written, I don't know, at least 10 books, and probably more, but been published 10 times. But my most current book, for instance, A Bakeable Feast, is 270 pages, filled with, poems, which could be considered vignettes, each one of them about a hospitality worker. So much of what I do isn't just in the bakery. I sold for years and years to all the top hotel, restaurant, casinos in the Twin Cities. So I many years hung out with more chefs than I did with bakers. And, in that time, I just kind of had the ability to, incorporate all these things. And at the same time, I've been friends with many of the top literary people, not just in Minnesota, but in the nation. When you're the best at something, which I am, I mean, I'll tell you right now, yeah, I am the best poet, hands down. I mean, all these people with their MFAs, they can talk about all they want, but at the end of the day, what? Yeah, I have an MFA and I sit in a room and I write a book. I'm Danny Klecko. I work in the kitchen with the sexiest people in the state, and y'all put them up against anybody with a literary degree. Now, in addition to that, my poetry books, award-winning, my bread lines, award-winning. So like I'm saying, when you're the best at what you do, the rest of the world will pay attention if you're not afraid to tell the truth.
Really?
Good words.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Trey. Sorry, I feel
No.
like we do this all the time.
No, I was just stunned by the word, so I was like, take a second, and I was trying to think of what was my next question. Dang, that was a really good statement. So I need a second.
I love that that's how you put that you work with some of the best people, and that's I guess there's some. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. I guess there's some grit to that matters.
Something, and I didn't say the best. I said the sexiest.
Sorry.
I work. I no, that's fine. I work in a kitchen, with people from all over the world. How many men who are 60 plus years, white men, have the ability to say that they've spent their life being a minority in their workplace? And I am so fortunate and so thrilled that I've had the opportunity to just be in the lives and the livelihoods of these people from all over the planet. I mean, that's why I'm saying, go ahead, get your degree. And I'm not here to knock education. I have a son who's a St. Paul public school teacher, and he has a master's degree. Good for him. But I'm just saying, at the end of the day, people don't really want to hear about your degree. They want to hear about the story. They want to hear about what's interesting. They want to hear about what's exciting. Nothing is more exciting or provocative than working in the kitchen.
I'm curious. I've heard that not only from you, but from a couple other people that have worked in kitchens before, whether it be small bistro places or whether they've been at like larger restaurants. So I'm curious what makes that? I've never really been able to get a good answer for that question.
I'll give you the answer right now, and it's because what I do for a living, almost everybody makes more money than people in hospitality. But at the end of the day, your day is over, and at the end of the life, your life is over. And you made some money, you did what you did. What I do, I go into empty space, bare, to the ceiling, but I fill it. I fill it with loaves of bread, and other people from different departments fill it with cake and Danish and all these different things. And in a 12-hour shift, we have created something that's not only tangible, but it's tangible and it's going to bring joy to an entire city. And we do it day after day. We do it when you're with your family celebrating Christmas. We do it when our children are having their birthdays. We're on the clock 24/7. We're like Captain Kirk. We never get to leave the Starship Enterprise, and that's just kind of the life of a true hospitality worker. That's why very few people have stuck it out as long as I have. But I love it. I can't, step away from it.
And that's so cool that you've been with it and that you continue to find something new and exciting about that.
That's great. I hope you do it with yours. It's like I've been doing baking now for well over 40 years, but every decade I reevaluate. I try to work out a lot, try to stay in good shape, all that kind of stuff. But I will say, one of the things that's super important, a lot of times when people hit 60, they kind of think, well, they've done what they need to do and now they're going to coast it out. I'm going to be better at 65 than I was at 35. I guarantee it, because I have a little bit more money. I have resources. I have connections. So the key is, to always try to raise the bar. But, the thing it took me until my 50s to understand is I used to think happiness would jump into your lap. Either it was there or it wasn't. And happiness doesn't do that. Happiness forces you to chase it. And most people don't take the time to figure out what makes them happy. I decided, trust me, I've had opportunities to double my income, and I've stepped away from it just because, look at Bourdain. Anthony Bourdain's a perfect example. Everybody loved him. He thought it was great. But what happened? He walked away from his crew, and within a few years, he was dead. And I loved Anthony Bourdain, but I'll tell you, when you are who you are, and he was a chef, when he walked away from his crew, that was the beginning of the trouble. And, he wasn't satisfied. He was sad. The depression got worse. Crews keep you on track. Crews keep you, in many instances alive. So a lot of mental health issues that go on in the hospitality industry. And a lot of us people come from broken families, divorce, all kinds of situations. So you have to take the time to consider some of these things.
I remember being in certain spaces in some hospitality things, and the people that were there around me were really like my found family. So, and I don't use the term family lightly. there were definitely some struggle days, but yeah, like I can see what you're saying, that they are the people that become your support system, and they're really the people that you lean on when you're having a rough day.
Absolutely.
That's how I felt when you and I used to work together, Trey. You know, in the real job, not this.
Yes.
I feel that way now too, but differently then. Yeah, I can relate to that.
Would you say, Emily, that Trey's your family then?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Oh, yay. That makes me happy.
So I can walk up and like jab him in the ribs every now and then, as family does.
Um, so like in the space of working with the sexiest crew, working with an award-winning breadline, having been such an incredible poet, and doing things better than you were at 35, I'm curious, what sorts of things do you do now, that you didn't do at 35, that you wish that you had started doing?
Can't do the things that I wish I'm doing now when you're 35 because you don't have the chops to do it. But I'll tell you, and what am I doing now? I'm really good at communication. I'm horrible at intimacy. Ask anyone, like if you're dealing with love and stuff like that, I'm not as successful. However, on stuff like this, I'm really good. So I'm friends with journalists. I'm with people from the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Chicago Tribune. I've had opportunities to cultivate these relationships with these people, where we're able to, just talk about things and simultaneously work on different things. I got published last year in the Times, 5 different times. I mean, and for me to think about doing that when I was 35 years old would have been unheard of. No one else got published 5 different, or I don't even know if anyone got published more than twice. But I'm just saying, part of it, Danny Klecko is the hardest working man in show business. So in addition to, going to work 6 days a week, he's constantly thinking of different things, different programs. I do a lot with the city of St. Paul Public Library. I do F. Scott Fitzgerald short story program, and I give that to the city, and we do that. So I live kitty corner on Summit Avenue, kitty corner from where Fitzgerald lived, where he wrote his first novel. So I'm right in the main stretch of Fitzgerald Avenue, and I've in the last few years traveled all across the nation. I've toured books everywhere from the Watergate to the Fitzgerald Museum in Montgomery, Alabama. But a lot of it's just meeting different people and having a good time, and nothing longer than 24, 48 hours, and then you're back baking bread.
So, and I love that you said that it's not necessarily something that you wish that you had done. It's the course of doing all the things from 35 up until now that have allowed you to do these things.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it is because everybody has a different trade-off. I grew up a young man without a father. I didn't have a male presence. I mean, I was the only kid, and was in an era when there wasn't such a thing as divorce. I was the only kid at my elementary school, so that had a divorced parents, and so kind of put me at a disadvantage. I was awkward socially, So I mean, everybody has their version or their story of something like this. So for me, I just kind of always tried to figure out my way in. 1976, I was put in the first mandatory home ec class. I was in 7th grade, and they forced us to do it. And all the men in our neighborhood, these men who I was trying to get, were saying, "Oh, Danny, you got to make sure you don't like home ec, because if you do," and then they wouldn't use the word queer, but they would use innuendo to teach us that we would be queer if we liked home ec, and that was a bad thing. So it was very confusing to us as young men with all this innuendo, not knowing what was supposed to be good and what wasn't. First day of home ec, I sat with 3 girls. We made apple crisp, and I never took shop, voluntarily after that. I was like in the kitchen for the rest of my life. But that's the nice thing about hospitality too. In the hospitality industry, and like so many of the other industries, everybody's welcome. They don't care if you have tattoos. They don't care if you're queer. They don't care if you're black. I mean, anybody, if you do your shift, you're welcome. And I've been in a lot of different parts of industry where that isn't the case. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Sorry, you go ahead. You speak first, Emily.
I am not ready to speak on that. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be in situations where that's not true. So wherever I've worked, it's everybody's had equal footing from what I could tell. But I can see where there are places where it's not. I just have been fortunate enough not to have experienced that myself. How about you, Trey?
I would say the same, but the places that, like when I was going through college, one of the biggest things I noticed is that in our both musical theater or in our music programs, there were not a lot of people of diversity in that. I looked around and the majority of the people in that room kind of looked like me. Um, so what I'm thankful for with the emergence of like social media and the different conversations that have been happening is that we're challenging the idea of what's expected to what we see on stage and be care more about the talent that we're putting up there than the quote unquote look of something. And so I feel like it's the landscape has definitely changed in the theater world. And it has given a lot more people a lot more opportunities that they should have gotten a long time ago.
You had recently one comment from the chat is my experience in the kitchen is exactly what you said. Nobody gave a crap about what you look like or who you love. They only cared if you were busting ass to get the work done.
Amen.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of in that kind of what matters. Also, and I was going to bring up, you recently had the opportunity to spend a day with someone that I found to be rather unexpected, but also in a good way, and that was Isabella Rossellini. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, that was. I spent the year. I do shows. I've done more shows than Barnum Bailey. I mean, whether I started off when I was a kid, I was so catatonic. I mean, they put me through kid therapy, but they don't tell you you're going through kid therapy because I never talk. But then they forced me into oral communication, speech class. So ever since I've been 8 years old, I've been doing lectures, essays, cooking demos, magic shows, whatever. But I've done a lot of emceeing, and so there's a for life. They're animal shelter, and I don't know, 7-8 years ago, they had me MC a show with Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer.
Oh yeah.
Right. So yeah, me and Caesar. I mean, he was dope. We had a good time, and he said nice things about me. And so when they every year they get a different celebrity, and with Isabella, they were talking about different talking heads that they could bring in from news stations or whatever. But I think they got a little bit nervous, thinking, well, I'm not sure if they can handle Isabella. We need someone a little bit off center to run with her. And they said, let's bring back the baker. And so I got to go, and it was, I got to tell you, I mean, I've met people in my life, and when you do what I do, as long as I have, it's not that big of a deal. But she was sitting there holding a little terrier at this plush venue. And the first thing she said is, my Klecko, what should we talk about? Your poetry or your sourdough? And oh my goodness, I'm kind of blushing right now. But I had like 18 weeks to write 15 to 20 questions that would go over 47 minutes. And, we didn't work on it. There was no practice or whatever. So, I'm nervous for, several months, making sure that I can facilitate this. Because if she answers too quick, then there's extra time in the event. Or if she goes too long, then I'm missing pinnacle questions or whatever. But I should have known. She was so pro. It's just everything finished. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and very gracious woman.
You have pictures of that on your Facebook page that I saw, and it looks like you both had a great time.
I mean, we're best friends. And when I say that, people kind of smile because, hey, I mean, there's some tongue in cheek in that. But I will say, yeah, once Klecko, always Klecko. Because the thing that's interesting about becoming my friend, I'm never going to invite you over to my house, and I'm not going to help you move the refrigerator. But when your car breaks down, I'll give you a ride. If you need $400, I'll help you out. I mean, and Isabella, I'm sure if I called her right now, told her I needed help, I'm not even kidding. She would do it.
That's incredible.
I
So,
believe that.
where do you think it's the ability to have socialized in your time working in the kitchen for you to just meet somebody and just have that kind of almost instant chemistry with, or do you think it's something that you've had to learn throughout the course of
Good question.
your time?
Yeah.
I've developed a character. You're now getting Klecko, and my real Christian name is Dan McLennan, who is socially insecure, but through like all these years of speech class and people telling me how to live my life, it kind of created this Frankenstein called Klecko. Fortunately for me, I became really big and I'm extremely handsome and I'm brimming with confidence. And I'll tell you, it's the confidence that sells. And I guarantee, for every person that loves Klecko, there's one or two who don't. But for the most part, in hospitality, if you're good at what you do, what you really learn is you never ask. I have never asked anyone for anything, but I'm a giver. And in my trade, if you give to people, then those people give back. And, and that's why I challenge anyone out there listening to just do Google searches on Danny Klecko or Klecko and sourdough. And there's story after I've been on the radio, TV, or in print at least once a month for the last 30 years. And that's just because I have learned the value of becoming friends with media people. And in the media people routinely come back because they know I'm going to give them more pull quotes in an interview than they're going to get in a month with anyone else.
Was that confidence a conscious decision? Did you ever have a light bulb moment where you were like, I've got to turn this around somehow and be more confident?
I did, because I was bankrupt of confidence. And I just knew I would never get anywhere. I was working as a baker, and then I had a wife and 2 small kids, and I was only making a small amount of money. And I thought, I've got to figure out, and my only investment that was myself. So I just kind of patterned myself after Muhammad Ali, and I watched films on him and listened to him, and I kind of loosely took the Klecko character and just shadowed Ali and the different periods of his life. So you have Klecko in his 20s was Muhammad Ali fighting right after becoming Cassius Clay, in his 40s fighting Foreman, and then so on down the road. But I'm a big fan. I don't know if you guys, did you watch the Paris Olympics?
Some of it, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, we lost you there.
And he's the guy, Noah Lyles ran the 100 meters.
Okay.
And he was the guy after he won. He was jumping up and down before the race started. And after he won, he was pointing at the camera saying, "I told you, America, I told you." And that's my new mantra.
That's right. I saw you post that.
and when my first major, I went on after my bakery of 30 years got shut down by ICE. I wrote a cookbook, or not a cookbook, a poetry book, Hitman Baker, Casket Maker, An American's Clash with ICE. And I went on a crusade against ICE. And I took it from Minnesota all the way out to the East Coast. It won awards. And so the night before the award ceremony, the Midwest Book Awards, I did social media blasts, putting pictures of Babe Ruth, pointing and calling a shot. And I told everyone that I was going to win this award because they couldn't give it to anyone else. And my publisher was saying, Danny, you can't say that because you could lose. And I said, no, because I'm not going to lose. And that's what Noah Lyles was talking about in the Olympics. You have to drag it across the finish line before it even takes place. If you don't, you'll never win. It's all in your mind.
I really like that as just a general motto for life. Um, like speaking for myself, I get very much in my head, but even talking with my therapist, it's like, well, what about the possibility that you win? What about the possibility that you make it? Like, what is that going to look like? So having that shift in perspective, what do you see people kind of shift their mindset whenever they hear that, or are people maybe still a little resistant to that statement?
You know what it is. It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm respectful to the question. Some people will resist. Some people will give into it. But what really matters is people are viewing me as a winner. And I mean, whether I win or lose, I'm claiming my space in a situation. I'm not, I mean, you can view it as egotistical or whatever, but once again, anyone who does the backstory knows Danny Klecko has fed, nuns all across the planet. He's coached Little League for 25 years. I mean, he's not a completely bad guy. But, at the same time, you have to, if you don't believe in yourself, if I go into a hotel or a restaurant and say, this is the third best sourdough in Minnesota, I'm never going to get the account. You just have to walk in, kick in the door. But, I'll tell you, confidence is the sexiest attribute. It doesn't matter. You can be the elephant man. If you have confidence, you can sell it. You'll be bringing home whoever you want from the dance. Trust me.
So when was like the first time that you saw this confidence change in yourself and actually show results? Like, do you remember a time when, you're modeling yourself after Muhammad Ali and you're like, okay, I'm going to try this time, and it worked?
Yeah, it was I had to do a baking demo for the Minnesota Baking Association. And at the time I was, in my late 20s. And so everybody was in their 50s and 60s. And I stood up at the platform and I told them that there was a new way in the baking industry, a way that had passed them and their time for honoring themselves was coming to an end. And basically, my way was going to show them how that they were going to do it. And it wasn't too late for them to hop on with us, and we would, bring them into their, retirement years at a profit. And, it was a gutsy thing. And some of the people were a little bit annoyed with it, but I'll tell you, I still have retired friends from the industry that, in fact, subscribe to this ideology, and they were able to, because at my age, a lot of people aren't, willing or able to work labor, so they're looking for salespeople or something like that. So my crew, we took care of those people, but we made sure that they gave us the resources we needed to get to a stronger position in our 30s and 40s.
So how did you, after that, how did you feel? Did you go, oh, wow, that worked? Like, what did that do for you?
Well, I mean, I didn't know the very day that I did it, but I knew that, some people patted me on the shoulder, and that was a good thing. But I also pissed off a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I realized that was probably even a better thing because I was getting their attention. If everybody likes you and if everybody agrees with you, it's a telltale sign you're going to fail. But, you always want to keep it balanced, 50% yes and 50% no. And then you just kind of, work that out, keep it even across the board. But once again, and I started, even as a younger man or whatever, dating and things like that, I was always, never fearful. And there's the rule, and I don't know if it's politically correct, but, there's the rule of two. If I'm a 7, I get to ask a 5 or a 9 out or whatever. I would ask the 10 out. And, I don't know, Em, when you were dating, did you ask people out or did you wait to be asked out?
Well, initially, when I was younger, I waited because I was way too shy and nervous to ask anybody. Now, though, I'm not. Now I would.
Yeah. Would you ask someone out if they were like, you know, in a different grade than yourself as you perceived?
Like out of my league?
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I'd ask anyone out.
I don't know. No, because I mean, I have to imagine this for a second. I don't know.
Am I allowed to ask questions?
No, you
am I,
definitely are. I'm just trying to think of an
100%.
honest answer that, like, I want to say yes, but there's a good chance I wouldn't because I'm still super shy and nervous to do such a thing. But I know that I don't know. Also, I don't know that I necessarily perceive anybody as out of my league in the sense that I used to feel that way. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
so that's kind of the point too of this whole dissertation is once we start going through this, we realize we're all the same. But it's the process of being fearless. I mean, and asking for what you want. But even more important than asking what you want is determining what you want. You know, and that's one. We're bringing everything back to confidence. You know, I mean, I just very seldom fail. And the more you keep me on this topic, a lot of the people listening to this are going to say, wow, this guy's a narcissist or conceited. And that's what they want to think. That's fine. But no, it's a formula that works. And if you have a formula that pays dividends, why won't you continue to tap into it?
I mean, I can't disagree with you because I've lived my own life I can't say very similarly, but similarly. When I first got involved with fashion, and this does sound like bragging, but when I first got involved with fashion, I jumped into a competition and won it, and I won almost every single one for many years after that because it was like, okay, I figured out I can win. I'm not going to lose again. And
There
I
you
just
go.
sort of had that attitude.
That's my point. That's not bragging. That's truth. And truth is always more interesting than bragging anyways, right?
Oh, for sure. And yeah, and I can sleep at night. You know. But yeah, and in fact, even there were a few times that I did maybe come in second place or something, but it didn't bother me enough to like worry about it. It was like whatever, I'm still doing my thing. And I didn't necessarily always do it to win, but I knew how to produce the quality to win. And once I figured that out, it was like, now we're just gonna win. In fact, if I'm gonna be really, no, I shouldn't do this anymore. There was a time when I could enter a costume contest knowing I would win, and that got me a lot of free tickets in places.
So were you like the Edith Head of your scene?
I don't know who that is.
Edith Head is the woman who sewed all the gowns for the Oscar award winners.
Oh,
Jackie O, those people.
I would.
Never mind.
I don't.
Old person
I understand who you're talking about now. I don't know if I would go that far, but in that world, maybe.
Yeah.
One of many, perhaps. But yes.
Okay, now you're backtracking. You could have just said yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
But the one of many, now you're letting us off the hook again. Just with yes was
Okay.
good.
I see what you're doing there. Okay. Yes, then.
Okay. Can I shift gears?
Sure, of course.
Sure, go for it.
Now, the other thing that I like to talk about, there's always an element of luck and learning how to take luck and then create luck into a good thing. I enjoy, in 1990, Mikhail Gorbachev came to St. Paul, the president of Russia, and myself, a little Polish boy, at the time married to a Russian Jew, fan of the Cold War. I got commissioned to create a loaf of bread that him and Governor Perpich would utilize to break in front of everybody, symbolizing, peace, breaking bread together. And that was a huge, huge opportunity. 1990, I was 27 years old. And to have that opportunity, it's not like they let me hang out with them or whatever, but everybody in my industry knew that I got the commission, I got to do it. And when I took it, man, I was beating my chest for a year. And since then, I mean, I've toured Russia 3 different times, everywhere from the Asiatic Arctic, the diamond mines of Ihil, Novosibirsk, Siberia, Moscow, Sochi, Glenjek, stuff like that. You know, you got to take an opportunity. No one ever gives you the opportunity. The fish never jump in the boat. If you get an opportunity, it's your, you know, it's up to you to exploit it and to find ways to plug it in, and no one does that better than I do.
Yeah, the luck is there for you to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I believe that. In fact, the person who taught me that a long time ago was somebody who taught me how to find a 4-leaf clover out in the lawn. And I was like, "How do you find 4-leaf clovers?" And she was like, "Oh, they're always there. They're there. You just have to find them. The only reason why you haven't found one yet is because you haven't really looked." And I was like, that doesn't sound true. But it is. It actually is. There are 4-leaf clovers everywhere. It's a simple genetic mutation that happens constantly everywhere in almost every lawn. In every clover patch, there are 4-leaf clovers. You just have to find them.
I have searched so long and so hard, and I have never found one. But you can go into the same clover patch and find it within 3 minutes.
Because you do develop an eye for it.
How dare you? How dare you?
But it's true, you do. You develop an eye for the pattern, like you see 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4. 4 will stand out. Once you start to recognize, once you find your first one, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I challenge anybody out there to do the same thing. Yeah. And also, because the plant will continue the genetic mutation, you will find more 4-leaf clovers on that same plant, typically, or come back later and it'll have produced more. So you can have a 4-leaf clover plant. Yeah, you'd have to dig it up maybe, but to like save it if you wanted to. But anyway, yeah, for sure, I believe that.
So, like, if you're going out and you are making your own luck happen, like, what does that look like for you? You've told us the story of Gorbachev, but what are some other instances where you feel like you have gone out and you have made your luck happen?
I just have to decide what I want to do, and once I figure out what I want to do, then I just do it. I became, during the pandemic, super engrossed in Lincoln, and his ghost has been reported more than any ghost in the history of ghosts. And then I did a little research. The interesting thing about Lincoln is he never went further west than Council Bluffs. So during the pandemic, in addition to working, whenever I got a day off, I would drive to different parts of the country. And then I got in, and then I just started this experiment, and I didn't even know I was writing a book, which I ended up doing, called Lincoln Land. But I mean, I talked to, I don't know if you guys are readers of, novels, but I got Jonathan Franzen in on it. I've got May Peng, who is John Lennon's mistress. She was in on it. George Saunders, Leif Enger, stuff like that. I would have my publisher contact these different people, telling them something that I connected to them with. Leif Enger, for instance, he lives in Duluth, and he's a huge kite flyer, which I do as well. So our publishers worked it out where we got to meet up in Superior and fly kites together, whatever. But, when I come up with a project, it's usually a conceptual piece, and I find slots for people who will inevitably become clickbait, for whatever I'm trying to accomplish.
Nice.
I'm sorry, my video is suddenly very choppy.
Same here.
Oh, that's strange. Okay. Everything looks fine now.
Okay. Cool. Lost my train of thought.
I've got a question.
Go
it's
for it.
off. It's not what we were talking about. But do people ever ask you to do impromptu poetry? Not that I'm asking. I'm just wondering. Well,
You
I'm sorry.
know, because I mean, I think, like there's a difference. I got nothing against any different form. Like the slam kids are great; they do what they do. But I'm from the old school. I'm from the old guard. I myself personally, I don't like holding the phone. There's no intimacy in the phone. I carry a clipboard, but I think so much of it is, in a presentation. I just don't memorize them. I have way too much work, and the time it would take me to memorize it, I'd rather be working on new stuff. But if you wanted to, you know, see an impromptu magic trick sometime, I'd probably be more likely to do that.
I was just curious. It feels like some of your work that I've seen you put on like Facebook and stuff, you've can come up with it kind of spur of the moment, or at least it feels that way. So I was just curious.
You're right, but, and that's the interesting thing. That's what's so confusing about the Klecko character. Nobody knows what if I look through social media, if what I just wrote was a poem or if it was a message or a letter. Everything just assumes things are a poem. And when I write messages to my friends, to my family, media members, I don't use punctuation typically. I just formalize it as a poem and I put it out. So I mean, that's just not trying to be difficult. It's just how I've been since a kid. Robert Bly never used punctuation, and he was my hero, still is.
I was curious if you had a name for your style or if you called it something.
It's, I think the biggest thing, what people, especially in the arts, but it can just be in life in general. I was really good when I was in my 40s, but when I was 50, I became unstoppable. Why? Not because I got better, but because I found my voice. I don't know. Maybe someone is more in tune or more self-actualized at an earlier age than I was. But I mean, I'm a firm believer. My first bread master told me when I was like 20 years old what I wanted to do with my career, and I said, "Well, I want to bake breads and travel and meet famous people." And he said, "Why don't you just shut up and stay here for 25 years and work really hard, and then the famous people will come to you." And I never forgot that. And I think a lot of it can be said, with these different things that we try to achieve in our life. We're really trying to find our voice. With your podcast, I know you've got 104 episodes. Wait till you have 500 episodes. I mean, you'll be able to do it without even thinking.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I hope not though, because I don't want to be so on autopilot at that point. But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But that doesn't mean
I'm sorry you cut out, and we haven't heard anything you said this time. I apologize.
you're on autopilot. It just means that you understand what every tool in the box has the capability of doing. And you can't learn that until you've had decades of experience with things, typically, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. I understand. Yeah, I don't want to just like phone it in. I want to do a great job, but I understand what you're saying for sure.
So with this idea of like people finding their voice for you, when you listen to other people talk, how do you determine that someone has found their voice versus someone who is still discovering what their voice is? I'm sorry, I'm not getting anything.
Can you start that over?
Check 1, 2, and here we go.
Yeah.
I can usually tell if a person's found their voice with the comfort of their delivery, and if they look natural, and if they're having a good time. I mean, these are all different things that show. And another thing, another way to do it too, is if there's a artist, whether it's a painter, poet, dancer, I never try to ascertain their level of skill after one time. If they hold my intrigue, I want to see them a dozen times. and then kind of figure out what I like. I mean, obviously, we don't have time to do that for everybody, but I mean, if I really like something, I want to, experience more and more.
Yeah, like that idea of, okay, I've seen a little shimmer. I want to come back and I want to see that again, and it's that appeal back to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, when we're younger, we do that with bands, and then we do it with television shows and different things. But these are all things. It doesn't necessarily have to be a human with the human voice. It can just be a concept that finds its tone or energy. I mean, energy is a huge thing, too. I mean, when I do events, oftentimes I show up if I'm allowed to, and I'll sit in that room for 20 minutes, an hour, it doesn't matter, totally empty, and I just sit there and kind of, feel its vibe, and as people trickle in, you just, every room is different, and from the lighting to the air quality to, and the more shows you do, you realize the room is itself is important of a component as the cheers, laughter, whatever that an audience provides as well.
I had a training manager once when I was facilitating for like new hire groups who said, show up to the space at least an hour ahead of time and just get comfortable. Make sure that you move throughout the space. You know that space before anyone else enters the room so that you can command that space like you've done it 100 times or even 1,000 times.
Great command. Because the one thing, come watch Danny Klecko do a set. Second he gets on that stage, I mean, it's his stage, period. And that is another way of understanding that someone is going to be successful. Now, I get it, like comedians have to deal with hecklers and things like that, but there's still an element of being able to command your environment. So I mean, Robin Williams was so good at that. I mean, he would come in the second he took that room, or Lenny Bruce, for instance. I mean, they would just own it the second they were in there. So yeah, energy is a big thing too.
So being authentic with your voice and having that command of a room, that's really powerful. Thank you.
Is there anyone you watch or look at now to still learn and grow for your own performances and things?
I was for many years a huge fan of Bono, because Bono, I mean, I adored him and I hated him because I mean, he irritated me, but he was so wonderful. He knew how to make connection to an audience, not just physically, but he himself was instrumental in the development of the stadiums that he played. He was the guy who put the arc that went halfway into the audience, so the people at the very back of the audience were now only half as way, from the stage. So he was always thinking about that connection, and I thought that was brilliant. But at the same time, I look towards the younger people now and see what they're doing, because whether the Stones or Springsteen, they're phoning it in because they're going to get paid either way. But I'm trying to look at the next generation and what they're doing. I mean, obviously Taylor's a freak. I mean, everything she does is gold. But I mean, there's no one who works harder than she does, and creating her culture. And I mean, I don't have to be a woman in her 30s to take those same energies that she has and plug them into the poetry world. I mean, poetry world, it's like shooting fish in a barrel because there's really no one to compete against.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious for whenever you are seeing these different things go on, you've mentioned a couple of people of like phoning it in. Makes me think of the word authenticity. When people are phoning it in, how do you communicate that to a person? Say they're asking you for feedback. How do you tell somebody that it felt like they were phoning it in? Just be upfront with them like that, or what does that conversation sound like?
Yeah, I mean, it's just exactly what you said. I mean, I'll just tell them I didn't like your set. I've seen you before. You were better, and you've lost some steam. And in my world, in the world of poetry, I mean, there's really only two things you need to do. You need to be very observant and you need to love people. That's it. And if you're observant and you love people, everything else is going to come together. You can learn the parlor tricks about how to command or whatever. But if you're not loving people, nobody cares. And nobody wants to hear my vitriol. Nobody wants to hear my anger. What people really want is connection. They want love. I mean, in today's world of all places, it's so huge. And once again, that ties in so much to what I do as a living with hospitality. A lot of times, there were periods where I had Tuesdays off for a long time, and I would bake bread and make borscht, and I'd bring it to like single mothers and with their children. I'd feed them and stuff like that. And you make these connections. Now, the people that you're talking about who are pulling these messages, they know it, because you don't get to be popular without being good, typically. And people can tell when they're slipping, but the payoff, unfortunately, not just in entertainment, even in my industry, I made a lot more money working a lot less hard. It's once again, but are you?
I'm sorry you cut out and we didn't hear anything after working a lot less hard.
Okay, well, I'm just saying the whole thing is you got to be happy, when you're doing this stuff, and so I've been able to work less hard and make more money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But hopefully I don't need someone to tell me, that I'm not fulfilling my happiness. I make switches and I go in different directions. And so like right now, I mean, I'm back for the first time in a long time. I'm baking. I'm standing in front of the ovens. I'm doing very little corporate things. And I've never been happier.
I'm so excited to hear you say that. There are many people that just kind of just get used to the sameness of that and get to that point of just phoning it in. So I'm so happy that you have found that joy and continue to find that.
Thank you. Yeah, I for a long time, they gave me the Monday through Friday 9 to 5 thing and paid me double what I make now. But now I'm working like horrible hours, and I'm dating a woman who works PM shift. And I mean, so we're the poster children of hospitality. But if that's what you grew up in doing and that's what you like, I mean, once again, you should plug into what you like to do.
I would agree. When you find something that you like, you are going to give more of your time and more of your energy to that, and it's going to make you more of an authentic person. I can speak from myself now. Like, I recently switched jobs, and I'm so much happier with this job because I'm with people who are empathetic. I am with people who understand and are willing to give that space for grace for people to learn and to grow. And I feel like that's given me an opportunity to find my happiness and my ability to be empathetic towards other people because of the wonderful people I work with.
And at a place where, for the first time in my life, the whole management team is women. And I mean, in a bakery production, I mean, that's unheard of. This is radical. And it's so wonderful. I mean, I get to go to work and people are nice and people are calm. It's just a whole different energy. And I'm not saying that there aren't kind men or mean women. I'm just saying in this particular instance, it's a lot of encouragement that we're getting. And for me, I haven't got that over the years. I've been in a position where I've been able to provide it, but hospitality can be a pretty tough industry. Is your industry tough?
It has elements, yes.
I believe that.
So, I mean, people get used to different things. So it sounds like running around like everything is on fire and everything is an emergency is not really a positive thing, is it?
It makes nothing an emergency.
No, you're right. You're right. And oftentimes it is just because it wasn't planned out properly in the first place. So, have a project, everyone comes here with a spirit of happiness. It's well, pretty easy.
Um, what I will say is, you've given so much, so many things, and so many like good pieces of advice. And even though you've referred to for like Klecko as a character, there's so much authenticity to the things that you have said that I'm really gonna have a hard time distinguishing like this as not your true person because it's so very authentic and there's so many wonderful things wrapped up inside of that. Um, and I wanted to say that just before I lost the point or lost the thought. The other thing that I want to ask is you've given us a lot of really inspiring things. But if you were to give a piece of advice to somebody who is either wanting to become a poet or wanted to get into baking, what is one piece of advice you would give them when they're just starting out?
First thing I would tell them is don't do it. And I'd wink at them jokingly because I mean they're both. I mean they're really grueling tasks, but you just have to. All kidding aside, you have to be patient in both of these because there's not a lot of external payout. You don't make a ton of money. I mean, in poetry, I mean, think about it. When you watch late night television, they have musicians, they have comedians, they have people with monkeys and people spinning plates. But when's the last time you saw a poet on the Tonight Show? I mean, it doesn't happen. So, I mean, you should be doing it because you love it. You should be doing it because you can't be doing it. Once you do that and are committed to it, you just have to find yourself a mentor. I had two mentors, Carol Conley, the poet laureate of St. Paul, and Mike Finley, who's passed. Both these guys, one of them was a positive influence and complimented all the good things. And the poet laureate, Conley, she was quick to criticize everything I did wrong. And that's super important because all too often in the arts, people only want to hear what they're doing right. I was so grateful to have someone point out what needed improving, and because it was all said with the spirit of love and hope that I would get better. So I mean that's and then but once again finding confidence in yourself because at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. If you like the piece, it's your piece.
Well said.
Yeah, very well said.
Um, and Klecko, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up some of the events that you've got coming up in the future. Can you tell us about some of the things that are upcoming in your schedule that we might see you?
Yeah, I'm coming to Sock Center in a couple weeks, and forward to that is my home away from home. I'll be at the 510 lab. I'm doing something. St. Boxer. I'm launching his book at the Dublinger on the 24th of September.
Can you say who that is again at the Dubliner?
Yeah, Mark Connor.
Okay.
He's a St. Paul boxer, and he wrote a book of poems. And so I'm always a sucker for the blue collar poets, and so I'm working with him on that presentation. Then once again in October I go back into Fitzgerald mode, doing the short stories, and I'm not even sure they've been rotating the libraries, on it right there. So I mean those are the next three big ones, and then on the third Saturday of every month, I'm always at the Black Forest Inn that has a show called Cheap Theater, and it's probably pound for pound the best literary show in the Twin Cities. It's comedians, essayists, people like that. These are old school hardcore. I mean, these are people with talent. It's fun because there's usually 5 or 6 presenters, and if you know that you're going to nail your set, you can still come home in 5th place because everyone there has the ability to just knock you on your butt if you're not on your game. So that's some of the stuff coming up, and for anyone who's interested, they can contact Danny Klecko on his Facebook page, and you can join the conversation as soon as.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
My last question before we wrap here is, if somebody wanted to buy bread from you, or buy some of your award-winning bread, where could they go to do that?
I'm sorry, we're not hearing you again.
Check. Best way to do that. Award-winning bread made by Klecko. I started a new gig in the last couple weeks, so I'm making their bread. But the award-winning bread, there's a book called Baking with the St. Paul Bread Club by Kim Odie, a former columnist from the Star Tribune. She built a 3,000-pound oven in her backyard. She wrote a book where she featured all the people in my bread club that I ran for 10 years, where I invited the whole Twin Cities into my bakery for free. But I have every blue ribbon state fair winner in that book. And all those recipes are immaculate. And once again, if you're serious, if you have bread questions, you can contact Klecko. Every day I'm answering bread formulas, questions like that on direct message and stuff like that. If you want to talk baking, that's fine. I don't want to, it's good.
That's incredible. We have a few things of bread that we're trying to make right now, so please imagine a question coming from me in the near future. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Still not hearing it.
Still not coming through. I'm sorry.
I hear?
Oh, there we go.
Okay. No, I was just curious what kind of bread you're making.
We've got a couple different starters, so I don't remember which one we're trying to do first. I'll have to go back and look through them. But
sourdough?
Not sourdough. I'm actually not a fan of sourdough.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
I gotta get you over that, because sourdough is the greatest bread on the earth, and I can demystify it and make it super easy for you. But you let me know, and we'll plug it in.
Absolutely. Well, Klecko, I want to say this last hour with you has been really incredible. You have given a lot of advice on being authentic. You've given a lot of advice on being confident and finding your own luck. And then also staying true to who you are as a person amid all the feedback that you get. So truthfully, you have given a lot of really, really solid advice. So thank you so much.
Well, yeah, thanks so much for having me. I had the time of my life, and so everyone out there, I hope you continue to support the podcast and look me up when you're in Sauk Center or St. Paul.
Will do. Yeah.
And that's going to be on September 14th?
Yeah, September 14th at the 510 Art Lab in Sauk Center.
Perfect. Well, as we close this episode out, this episode, along with probably every other, will be dedicated to Joe Capone, our moderator, fellow comedian, passionate encourager, and greatly missed friend. You can find us pretty much wherever you tune into podcasts. For updates, announcements, and more, follow us on social media under Modern Romantic. Thanks, everybody, and go bake some bread. Bye, everybody.
Bye.